And so bringing it back now to emotional mastery, which I really feel like is something that you guys really powerfully teach.
Yeah, thank you.
If we look at emotions as like that chemical residue from past experiences and past
Yeah,
feedback, and they're either working for us or against us, how
yeah,
do we understand that? How do
yeah.
we actually step into self-empowerment with that?
Yeah, great. Fantastic question. I think there's a couple of layers to that question. So I'm going to try and unpack it in a couple of ways. I think the first thing I want to share for everyone listening is that awareness precedes change. So a lot of the times when we work with somebody, it doesn't matter what age you are, but effectively the earlier it's the better. It's a little bit easier to change when you're younger just because you haven't ingrained those habits. It's not because you have any less capabilities to change. It's just that you've got less to change, so to speak.
Less
So
momentum.
first thing that we've got to do is be aware, right? You've got to be aware of how you're feeling in order to know if it's serving you or not, and therefore choose something different. Most people have got absolutely no idea. They sort of just go through the day, get to the end of the day and go, what happened, right? So a really powerful tool, which is not necessarily NLP based, but just a great tool, is to set an alarm on your phone every hour on the hour. Now, that might not be practical in every environment, but you understand the reference point at least, and set the alarm. And every hour when it goes off, the question you want to ask yourself is, how am I feeling?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to expand upon that, how am I feeling? What am I doing? And what am I focused on? Because oftentimes, if you understand those three levels, right? How am I feeling right now? What am I doing with my time, my energy, my effort? But also, what am I focused on? Because I might be working, but I might be focused on the argument I had with my wife, or I might be working or doing a podcast with you, and I'm completely present in this. And this is a clear proxy of my emotional range, right? But if I'm here and I'm distracted about something, then I might not be feeling anything to do with this. I might be feeling something to do with the past or the future, right? So
Mm.
that's some really powerful tools. And if you do that, what you'll realize is pretty staggering. In the English language, there are 2,000 words to describe how we feel. 2,000.
Whoa.
However, over experiences of time, you see a child, they experience the full range of emotion at any moment. They go from hysteria to lunacy, right? It's like they're happy and then they're sad. And so over time, we get boxed in emotionally into a range, and that's very much based off the people around us. And effectively, what ends up happening is we habitually feel on average 12 emotions on a daily basis. Now, they do vary day to day, but most of the time they sit in a pretty comfortable range. And you'll have sort of 12 emotions that you go to regularly that meet a lot of your needs, that are just comfortable places to go to. I know for me personally, frustration's an easy place for me to go to, right? Traditionally, men will go to frustration pretty easy, or certainly masculine energy will. My wife, Ash, very different. She don't get frustrated. She gets sad. I don't get sad. I get angry, right? So just different emotional ranges, right? By the way, anger and sadness don't work well together as a combination.
No.
And so we go 12 emotions. Now, from our studies of that, what we found is that for most people of that 12, 8 of those emotions are negative, or what we would refer to as quote unquote negative emotions, and 4 positive. So what that means is that we have this, almost it's like we've got all of these colors to paint with, but yet we keep going to these 12 emotions that
Mm.
are these 12 paints to paint or color in our day. And of them, 8 we don't like, or at least 8 that we don't openly choose, or at least we wouldn't choose. And so the first step is to be aware of what you're using. The second step is then to go, great, well, let me choose to paint from a different color. And one of the first things I encourage people to do, even before they choose different emotions, is to just really try to really accurately describe how you feel.
Mm.
This is really important because what we tend to do in life is one of 3 things to process the world around us. We delete, distort, or generalize information. One of the key problems of emotional mastery is that people are all too often quick to generalize emotional experiences or distort them, or even in many cases delete them.
Mm.
But let's just talk about generalization or distortion. You might feel sad, but sad is different to feeling depressed, which is different to feeling a bit low or a bit flat, which is different to feeling fatigued, which is different to feeling, almost not nostalgic, but like reminiscent or longing for something, right? They're slightly different flavors, right? You might say that they're all very similar, but there's some small nuances if we can be really specific. But when we're rushing through life and we just sort of use a broad brushstroke, we go, oh, I'm just feeling sad. Well, you're not feeling sad. So if we can start to expand out our emotional range, it's like, hey, I'm not depressed. I actually felt 12 different emotions today, and they might have all been negative, but depression was only one of them, because it's very easy to sort of cluster things together and go, I'm always like this. I'm always sad, or I'm always depressed, or I'm always anxious, or I'm always angry. You're not. emotions, great reference point, is that emotions are like clouds on a breezy afternoon. They come and they go, they're transient. What's difficult is holding on to them. That's what's exhausting.
Mm.
Feeling angry, or then feeling sad, or feeling depressed or anxious or happy or in love or overjoyed or excited, there are naturally occurring states that will come to you and then leave you. Now, we can train you to recall them and access them at any moment. That's the mastery part. But as a starting point, it's just to acknowledge that they are going to move and change unless we keep attaching ourselves to them. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that well?
Oh, yeah, beautifully. And I think it's so often that we just choose to delete emotions. We become
Yes.
aware of them,
Yeah.
and particularly on personal development journeys,
Yes.
people start to believe, oh, well, I'm on a personal development journey. I can't feel sad. I can't feel negative
Yes.
emotions because I'm growing, and
Yes.
this is who I am now. I'm positive, and just
Yes.
ignore. But what happens when we ignore and when we actually delete these emotions is they just get stored and trapped in our body.
Yes.
And then it just becomes this slow unconscious bleed that's coming out as anger or blame and frustration, or you bloody drop a cup in the kitchen, you start crying, and you think it's about the cup, you think it's about your external reality, but it's
Yes.
because you actually haven't taken time to acknowledge these feelings and yeah, as you say, become aware of them.
Yeah, 100%. And we see this so often, right? People suppress and then they erupt.
Mm,
And certainly spouting off all your emotions all of the time and never like repressing things is not healthy, but repressing them constantly is not healthy either. The ability is to understand contextually when's it appropriate or not. And appropriate is not when's this appropriate, but rather when are you going to be able to shift this in the best possible way for yourself. There's times to fly off the handle. There's times to cry. There's times to be still. There's times to go, you know what, I can't deal with this right now. I'm going to park the bus here. I'm going to come back to this later. The key is to know when to do that and when that's just the ego trapping you, so to speak. So that leads most people to a place of at least going, okay, well, I've got a pretty good temperature check of my emotional range and what I'm dealing with. And I think one of the biggest things that I would share to people with regards to emotions is to shift their mindset and to really, if they can, write this sentence down. But it's something that I live by, which is that emotions are skills. Emotions are skills. So for me, I've always been a confident person. Now, I'm sure I didn't come out of the womb confident. It's something that I've developed over time, but for as long as I can remember, I've been quite confident. And that's something that I constantly work on. I constantly work on taking actions that are uncomfortable to me. I constantly work on stepping out of my comfort zone and embodying the characteristics and the mannerisms and behaviors of someone that's confident. Now, bit of tongue in cheek, but I'm not very good at self-doubt. I don't practice self-doubt. However, if I was to practice self-doubt for 2 or 3 weeks, I can promise you I'd be really fucking good at it by the end of the 2 or 3 weeks, right? So it's like for someone that's experiencing a lot of negativity in their life, it's because they're actively practicing the skill of that. It's like anything, whether that be playing the piano or archery or sport or whatever it might be, chess, you get better at whatever you engage in. So if you think of emotions as skills and you were to write a list of what are the skills that you've got, what are the emotions that you've nailed? Well, one of the things that I'm not very good at is patience, right? Or tolerance. I'm not very good at those skills. So it's like I've got to work at those skills to get better at them. But so often people are quick to just go, oh, I'm not that type of person.
mm,
And then you're completely shutting off a growth opportunity to yourself. It's like, I might not be a very patient person. I might not be a very tolerant person, right? Particularly at certain stages of my life. However, I can be better at that. It's so different as someone saying, oh, I'm not a very outgoing person. Well, would you like to be?
mm,
Because if you'd like to be, then fucking be that person by
mm.
working on being that person. And this is the
And
distinction. Sorry, you.
I was just gonna say it works the opposite way as well, that people
Yes.
actually will identify with negative emotions. They'll start to embody them as who they
Yes.
are. And then it just becomes that rewriting emotion day after day after day. So I am
Yes.
anxious, or I am
Yes.
stressed, or
Yes.
these emotions just become a part of us. And so we're fully instructing our subconscious mind to create this as our reality day in, day out.
100%. And the point I was going to make just about the negative emotions as well, particularly for people that have got, for example, or are being diagnosed, terrible word, but let's say nonetheless, being diagnosed with depression or anxiety. I see this all the time. People say, I have anxiety or I have depression. I have a t-shirt. I have a coat. That doesn't mean that I am those things. It's like, yeah, cool. I have something. That means I can put it on. I can also take it off. So it starts with I have something. Then it becomes I am something. I am depressed. Right? It's like someone saying I am a diabetic. It's like, well, hold on a second. there are things that we can do to change that. And obviously you might have been diagnosed with that. That might even be hereditary, but so often it becomes your default mentality in the world. And then you accept that as a reality, and reality is negotiable. You can change and evolve that however you like. So certainly what I found is that people that embrace those patterns, like I have this or I am this, Mick, it's that much harder to be able to shift it. And the reality is we all may go through times where we experience those things, but for everyone listening, language is power. So instead of saying I have something or I am something, it's like I am experiencing this. It's like Calvin, I'm experiencing depression in this moment, or I was just experiencing depression, or I was just experiencing anxiety. I am not anxious. I am not anxiety. I also don't have it either. I've experienced it, but I don't have it. I don't own that concept, right? It's something that you can work through. So, and coming back to the point I was making before, if we have the ability to, and we can cultivate this as well, to look at the list and to go, these are the things that I am and these are the things that I'm not. Well, it's like, cool, these are the skills that I've not yet developed and these are the skills that I have developed. And then you've got to ask yourself a powerful question, which is, is it serving me? Anger, for example, and depression and anxiety, any negative quote unquote emotion is actually a positive emotion if it's used positively. And one of my favorite quotes is, learn to use the emotion, not let the emotion use you.
Awesome.
So as much as we want to prime our bodies so that we feel more confident, so we feel more in control of our lives, so therefore by default, we will be more confident and more in control of our lives, there's also going to be times where you get sort of bitch slapped by life. There's going to be times where you get thrown a curveball and disaster strikes you. And that could be a little thing or a big thing. The most important thing is not to go, well, if that happens, the game's over, but rather to go, great, let me use that energy to channel it into something more powerful. And so if things are not going well, can you find a way to turn that almost through the process of alchemy, emotional alchemy, from a negative into a positive by using it? Because in that point, that emotion was useful to you, wasn't a negative emotion. And for people that are thinking about this, a lot of people might jump to the conclusion, oh, I've got to fake it till I make it. And I don't believe in that. I believe in working on it until you own it.
Awesome.
And so for me, there's a lot of things in my life where I go, cool, well, I might not be there yet, but I'm not going to just fake it because that feels ingenuine and it feels like it's not authentic. But I'm going to go, okay, cool, I'm going to act, I'm going to show up in a way that would be right. And I'm going to keep working on it until I own it. And one of the favorite quotes around the subject from a gentleman called Calvin Coolidge, president of the United States, or at least he was. And he says, I was never a brave man. I just acted like I was until I became one. And so it's like whatever you practice long term is what you sort of manifest and what you reap what you sow, so to speak.